is your time. Better live it today. Take a stand. Meet your dreams halfway. Leave behind all the fear and doubt. And welcome to your beautiful now.
Hey everybody, it's Derek Floyd here, Beautiful Now Podcast. We are jumping off with a brand new segment of Beautiful Now Live. Now this is the segment where I interview special guests about things that are topical and relevant to you, your family, and community. And if you love this kind of content, do me a favor, pause right now, hold on, big pause, hit me with a like or subscribe to the channel. This lets me get the most updated content to you as soon as it's available. And most importantly to me, hit the little bell on the side because that lets me know when content is coming out the gate, when it just drops out. And then of course, the best thing you can do for us on these kind of things is if you share it with a friend, because I want to make sure everybody leaves uplifted, encouraged, and inspired. Now today, I've got a really great segment for you. And it's one of those things that's really dear to my heart because this gentleman has an incredible story. And it makes me think, most people probably live their life super comfortable. Like they avoid anything that looks like hard work. They don't want any discipline. They don't want to work hard. They just want to be able to get things super easy. Find me the easy button and they're there. And don't even mention words like sacrifice or determination. They just jump out because all they want to do is look at their phone and get the dopamine hits for the next like, whatever they're doing. But not this guy. This guy has faced all kind of adversity, and he has really shown us how to step up to the next level and really get to the dream he's always had. So in many ways, I want you to take a listen to the story and try to find yourself in it, because we've all had adversity here and there. I know I have, I know you have, and you felt like, man, I'm never going to make it, never going to get there. But this guy, I'm telling you, this story with this man is going to make us all feel like we got too many excuses. He's been through it all, and he's got a story to tell you that's going to bless your socks off. So will you please help me give a warm welcome to my new friend, Mr. Walter Randall. Walter, are you there in the house, bro?
I am here. How you doing?
There he is. There he is. What's good, man? How you doing, brother?
Doing pretty good. Glad to finally be on this show with you. It was a long time coming. It's
been a long time coming, man. I know. And we've been talking about it for a minute. But just, when you shared the story with me, I'm like, I got to put you on a channel just so people can check you out. Because it's a no-brainer, man. You bless so many folks. Just me talking to you, I know the people are going to be blessed by it.
I hope so. That's the goal.
I love it, man. I'll see you behind them gold records back there. I check you out. I see it. I see Hamilton back there. Is that for real? Is that the real deal?
Oh, we got more. I'm not showing you the whole wall. So yeah, we got some gold, we got some platinum, Grammy certificates back there, a little bit of everything.
Okay. Well, I see you having a little bit of a freeze on your video, but that's okay. You keep talking. We'll catch up with it because most important is they get to hear your voice. So a lot of times, everybody that's watching out there, when someone's doing an interview with us, if they're on a phone or if they're on Wi-Fi, sometimes that signal gets to be freezing. But don't leave the segment. Keep listening because it's worth listening to what this man's got to say. Trust me. Right, man? You got me?
You better believe it.
All right, man. So let's kick off into a little bit of your story. Let's kind of tell them a little bit about what you do. Now, you are the sole owner of one of the most sought after production houses, music, multimedia, video, audio production houses in the country, in New York. And it's called Lounge Studio NYC. Tell them a little bit about what Lounge Studio NYC is and what services do you offer there?
So right now we've come a long way. We've been in business for 20 years now. I started this business when I was 23 years old, believe it or not, with my first room here, but now we're up to 11 rooms. We started off in strictly music, recording, mixing, mastering. Now we've branched off into photography. We've branched off into videography. We've branched off into podcasts. So we do a little bit of everything now. We do film scores. We do like the Daily Show is one of our clients. We've done the Today Show. So there's quite a few things that we do now that has evolved over the many years that I've been open.
Wow, that's quite a bit, man. And you've had everybody from Kelly Rowland in the studio. I mean, you've had Kendrick Lamar stop through. You've had Ed Sheeran, even Solange. I mean, if people have all used your facility. What do you think makes your studio stand out above all the other studios?
I think a lot of people when they come here, they feel really, I think they feel my blood, sweat, and tears that I put into this place. It's a very boutique feeling place. The atmosphere is very comfortable. It's very homey. When you guys get a chance to check out the site, you'll see it's not your typical studio with gray walls and, sort of doom and gloom and get to work. It's a lot more like, it's called Lounge Studios because I wanted each room to resemble a lounge, somewhere where you can feel comfortable. You feel like you could take your shoes off, which many artists do, and relax and feel like you're at home creating music, like a home away from home. So that was really my goal, was really approach this from a place where people could feel comfortable. It wasn't a sterile thing. It was something where they could come in and feel like they were invited into somebody's home. And it is my home. It's our home here with my team.
I love that, man. I love that home vibe. I mean, that just gives it a whole nother feel when you talk about being able to be there together and just have people stop in, take the shoes off, and just be creative. You've also worked closely with record labels like Atlantic, Warner, Sony. How did those relationships come about, and how did you bring those to the table for people who come in?
Well, okay, so I started this thing when I was 23 years old, and it took a while before I got anybody significant in. It was some years in, but one of the four majors at the time was EMI, and shout out to Omar Grant, I think who believes that Rock Nation now, Leotis Clyburn. Those were some of the head guys over at EMI, and those were the guys that sort of gave me my first break with working with a lot of major writers. So I was doing a lot of stuff with EMI. And as these EMI writers would come in, they would bring more and more people through. They would tell people like, oh, there's this new spot nobody knew about. And this was just when it was one room. And from EMI, it just sort of grew, because they would bring in artists that were signed to Sony that they were writing for, or they would bring in people who were signed to Universal that they were producing for. And they would come and be like, oh, I never heard of this spot. I think I'm going to start coming here. And word of mouth really carried me a long way.
Wow. And you have 11 rooms now? That's what you said?
Yeah, so we have 11 rooms. We have the last two rooms. So we have 9 up and running. The last 2 rooms are actually mixing Atmos rooms. That's a new type of audio that you see on Apple. It's actually the default on Apple Music right now. You would have to switch it off to get off of that. So those are the 2 new rooms that we're building. And I have a lot more plans, in the future, but we're at 11 now.
Wow. So here you are. You're only, what, 40 less? You're less than 40, 39?
No. I'm 43.
Oh, no, you're a young buck.
I love that you gave me 30s, though. I appreciate that. That's a good thing. I should have just let it flow.
At this young age, man, here you are accomplishing this enormous dream to build. Now, y'all hear this. It's in the middle of Manhattan, and it's 11 rooms. And y'all know how much real estate is in Manhattan. So this spot has got to be off the chain. And people are coming from all over. All these artists are coming from all over. Record labels coming from all over. All from this one guy. Now, I'm going to shock him and tell him that originally, this wasn't even your first dream. You wanted to be in the NFL, right? Didn't you want to be a ball player? And what happened that changed you to go to music?
Well, I was a state champion football, state champion track. So I grew up an athlete. And I always loved music. Don't get me wrong. I always loved music. But I grew up an athlete. I was the captain of the football team, captain of the track team, got a full scholarship to college. And I think in college, the first thing that happened was I tore my knee, my ACL, my sophomore year. I started as a true freshman, tore my knee my sophomore year. And of course, can't bounce back. But then I tore it 2 more times. And after the third time that I tore it, I felt like maybe God was telling me there's something that you might be more passionate about. And when I look back on that time, the amount of work, the thing about football, I loved football and I love track. I think I probably like track more than football, but I didn't put as much effort into being my best at those 2 things as I did with music. And even though I would have never admitted it then, I feel like I had a lot of natural talent that I didn't feel like I maybe had to work as hard. Um, which, when you really love and are passionate about something, that shouldn't be an obstacle for you. So I'm not sure if I really loved it. It was something that I was good at. It was paying for school. It was fun times. But I can see the difference between me doing my athletics and me doing my music.
And knowing that you had adversity here after breaking all those bones and not being able to go forward in the career that you thought you wanted to do, you had adversity even when you were like 2 years old, right? You were fighting uphill. Like, who's this
Oh
guy right here? Hold on, no, let me see it. Who's this guy? Who, who's that guy on the screen? What I want to know,
you can tell
that
from that big
dude.
forehead. It's the same
that
forehead.
now that dude. Tell me, hold on. That dude had been through it too, because he was what, he had broke both of his legs, right? To
Oh
be
well,
able
yeah.
to
So
to be able to
yeah, when
walk.
I
Tell
was
me about that story.
yeah, when I was born, actually, I didn't even break my legs. They broke them. My feet were turned completely around, pretty much, and they had to, pretty much tell him, if we have to break these, and he has to pretty much grow up in cast for the next few years in order for him to be able to walk. Um, so that's the story of that. I learned how to walk in cast. I was in cast till almost I was 3 years old, from when I was born all the way until about 3 years old.
Wow. So here you are, you're suffering with that adversity. Then you go through another layer of adversity when you get to college and you can't play ball, and you think, okay, is this not working out for me? Am I choosing the wrong thing? And fast forward, here you are, 2022. Physical
Hmm.
adversities have ended your football game, ended your football career. You got $50 in your pocket, right? And you
Yeah.
decide, I'm gonna take over the music industry. What in the world were you thinking? and did you
Um,
actually think you could pull it off?
um, yeah, I did think I could pull it off. After I tore my knee that third time, like, I'm very grounded in God. Like, I understand, like, all things are in my life are done through that type of strength, right? Not ever my own strength. I've always faced adversity. Obviously you've heard some of the stories, but there's been a lot of stories of adversity leading up to that point. And God has always carried me through. So when I tore my knee, I felt the calling. It wasn't the third time. It wasn't something where I was depressed or sad. It was something where I was like, oh, there must be something different. And I really leaned into it, and I realized, like, what else do I love? The only other thing that I could think of that I loved that much was music. And I just felt that calling, and it's a genuine thing. I'm not making that up. It was a feeling of, like, just, oh, I'm sure this is what it is.
Mm, mm. So you had a calling, a second calling, if you will, to do music. That was your second passion. And
Yeah.
you figured, okay, if God's telling me to do this, then I can pull it off. Did you have a clear vision of what Lounge Studios has become now, or were you just making it up as you went along? And how'd your family receive that? Were they supportive? Because you were already doing the football thing. Did they have to go, okay, now we can support you here? How did that work out?
So to answer the first part of that question first, I well, my family, first of all, is super supportive. They're the ones who raised me in church and making sure I understood, like, the importance of God, in my life. So they've always been supportive, from the very beginning. But for the first part of that question, it always looks to people like I'm jumping off the ledge, right? You know,
Yeah.
Walt doesn't have any money, but he's going to New York to open this studio.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, During the pandemic, oh, Walt is opening a photo studio. He's never done photography. Oh, now he's doing podcast room. He's never done podcasts. Like, but what I can tell you is that I am a researcher. Like, every move that I've made up to this point, I've thoroughly researched it. So before I ever came to New York, I looked at the economic census, for instance, and saw, what the probability of success was if I opened a studio. What were the top places? It was LA and New York. how many studios, so how much competition would there be? How much money are those studios bringing in? Like, I was doing that as a 22-year-old, writing it out, putting it in front of me, studying the analytics of it. And that's how I made the decision. It wasn't just a feeling, a gut feeling, because I honestly feel like faith without works is dead, right? So you get this feeling that you want to do something, but and then you just sort of, do you wait for it to just happen, or do you do the due diligence to make sure that you pursue it the best way that you can, so that you make sure that it happens? With me, faith and work goes hand in hand. There's no separation in my mind with it, and that's one of the main things that I think keeps me going and keeps me to this point and in the future succeeding, is that those things go hand in hand.
Wow, wow. And bring them into the part of the story where, like I said, you have $50 in your pocket. You decide you're going to make this dream of this studio, but you did it all by yourself. Like, you physically saved the money. Talk a little bit about how you got from $50 to the money to buy the first spot.
Yeah, and I might not have even had $50. I think that might have been some money I got from my mom. Yeah, so this part of the story is, I feel like, crucial, because, like, when we talk, you never really hear about what it takes to get there, like what those beginning moments are. You always just see like the flashiness. You see the plaques behind the person. You see the Grammy certificate. You see the Billboard #1s. But it was a lot that went into how I got here. So that how I got to New York was, I did the census research. I did some other research, and I ended up coming out here, and I found a room in the Bronx that was, I believe, $75 a week. So I was sharing one room on 224th and White Plains. And a lady, God bless her soul, named Mother White, she passed, but she allowed me to come into her house, and I shared that house with 4 other people. Shared the bathroom. I didn't have my own bathroom, didn't have my own kitchen. But I came with a plan to work and save money. And that was the cheapest place that I could find. And God sort of sets you up when you set your mind to work, because it was cheap. But then she was a woman of God who also inspired me daily. She was, I think, 97, and she was in college. And
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
earning,
College dude at 97? Oh, man.
yeah, she was 97 years old in
Never stopped
college.
learning.
She never stopped learning, and she was a woman of faith. And so he put me in that situation where I could save. I actually worked in another passion of mine. I worked at Spofford, which is was called Bridges at the time. It's a juvenile detention facility. It's a jail for 18 and younger. I worked there as a juvenile counselor, and very, very little income. I believe I was making like 28,000 a year when I started that job. But I saved every penny of that money. I didn't go out to the movies, maybe once or twice. I ate ramen noodles like everybody else does. Like, I really had my heart set on, like, I need to save this money to be able to get a spot.
Wow, wow. So here you are. You have saved all your cash, living in a one-room shack, basically, under a beautiful woman who's taking good care of you. She's looking out for you. But you don't have, you're working every day. You're taking every dime you have and put it into this business. Then you say, okay, I finally find a building. Like, tell me about what you found and how that worked and didn't work at the same time.
Yeah, so the first place that I found was a place in Harlem. And remember, this was my first time in New York. And I remember everything. 125th is the new place. It's the new, capital of New York. The Clintons had just moved there. There was a lot of new businesses coming to 125th Street. So I had saved up enough money. It only took maybe 6 or 7 months before I had enough money to get a place. And it was 125th Street, so it wasn't crazy expensive. Got the space. When I got that space, when I tell you I went in there and I like laid on the floor and prayed, I was like, and just thank God, like, thank you, God, this is it. It was amazing. I just worshiped God on the floor, I think, for about 2 hours. And I had got a broker who got secured this place for me. But what ended up happening was the place wasn't a 24-hour building. They wouldn't allow me 24-hour access. They were trying to cut my time at 7 o'clock where I couldn't enter the building. And as you know, in the music industry, you can't have a studio that closes at 7.
You wouldn't have nobody in there
I wouldn't
because everybody come in about 10 o'clock.
that people are coming in. And so I prayed really hard. And God, please, I know this is your will. You gave me the spot. I saved up the money. I worshiped you right away when I got to the spot. And the owners, they allowed me to meet with them to try to, talk to them. And they were good owners. But they told me, like, you're such a great guy. We'll give you all your money back, but we just can't do this. We can't do the 24-hour thing. And it was a little hard because I really thought this was the place. I was on 125th Street in New York, and this was going to be the new place where everybody goes to. And it didn't happen. It sort of got pulled away from me. But God always has other plans, right? I'm walking down the street that day, and there used to be a paper in New York called The Village Voice that was a free paper. I had never really looked in the back before, but in the back there were classifieds and there was commercial real estate. And I just opened it up, and I saw a commercial real estate spot, and it was a building. It was in Midtown, and I had never really thought about being in Midtown because the price was too much. I was, making $28,000 a year, living in a shack in the Bronx. How could I afford a space and afford the material to build it on that salary? And but I went. Something told me, like, just go and check it out. So I let go of my broker, and I did this on my own. I went to the place, and it felt right. And I couldn't afford it technically, thinking about buying the material to build it and all of that. But I pulled the trigger on it because I felt like maybe this was God saying, you can be in Midtown. You can be in Times Square. You can be right in the middle of everything, and I'll enable you to afford it.
Wow.
And so that's how I ended up where I am.
So y'all hear this? He went out there and he walked into the building and said, "This is the one." God said, "This is it. This is," and knowing it was way out of range and the whole nine, but he felt that God was going to make that move. And I just love that part of your story because for me, it felt like you checked with God each time. Even if it wasn't working, you said, "Okay, guys, is this it? Is this the one?" And he would guide you through. And, the next few years as you're working on this building, because you did get the building, that was determination, and that was a lot of work. Tell them about what was going on those next few years as you were actually building the studios by yourself. That just blows my mind. Tell them about that.
Well, yeah. So, a lot of people ask me when they found out I built these studios, and I built every room here, even up to number 11. It's all me. So in the beginning, especially, of course, I couldn't afford a construction company to, spend $50,000 to build a room for me. And I couldn't afford somebody to come and labor with me just because I didn't have the money. So I moved out of the house that I was in and just was living in my truck because I couldn't really live in a construction area because there was a lot of fiberglass and stuff that would be bad for my lungs. And I bought a Home Depot book. It was a DIY construction book from Home Depot. And I taught myself construction. And
Taught yourself construction.
All those pictures you saw, I had never built so much as a birdhouse before. And nobody believes that. People are like, "Oh, were you a handyman before?"
Yeah.
No, I bought the DIY book from Home Depot, and they had another one called 1, 2, 3 Electricity. So I wired this place myself, but I just read and I studied, and then so that's one part of it, the construction. But then you have to learn the acoustics of it. Mm-hmm. So I would take the bus or walk to a bookstore, Barnes and Noble. I would just sit there. I couldn't afford the book, so I would just sit in the bookstore all day and read up on acoustics, the properties of acoustics, how to float a room, what are the different modules, what are the different equations that you need to diffuse sound at different frequencies. What do you need for bass traps? What frequencies do you? What is the thickness of the wood that you use? What are the most effective methods? And I would sit there day. And so you got to remember, this is before YouTube,
Wow.
the do-it-yourself YouTube. This was me literally just reading, and I would read it, and then I would try to hurry up because I couldn't take the book with me. I would hurry up and try to get back
Oh my God.
to what I had just learned. Um, and if you don't mind, it's one story that like really it took a year to
Please
build
tell
this
it.
spot.
Tell it.
But there was a time when I was building the ceiling. I was putting up the ceiling. So the room is floated. So that means that the floor is floated up and the ceiling is floated down. Um, and so I had to I'm not sure if you guys ever carried 5/8 inch sheetrock. It's really heavy, commercial grade sheetrock. And I was doing this by myself, but I had to lift these huge panels up to the ceiling and I would have to carry it up this ladder and then hold it up with one hand and reach down, grab my screw gun, and try to get each stud as I'm doing it. And it was really hard to say the least. My shoulders were on fire. It was really hard work. And I was almost done with the control room segment of the ceiling. And I would get up there and I would be doing it, and then all of a sudden the panel fell down
Oh.
because it wasn't catching the studs. And the panel, because the sheetrock was so big, it broke when it hit the floor.
Mm.
And it was just like, oh man, so you have to cut a new piece because this is not a square. So I'm cutting this to fit the lines of the ceiling, the geometry of the ceiling. And so I have to measure, draw, cut a new piece. So the second one, I carry this big heavy piece up the ladder and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get it this time. And I prop it up and I reach down, get my gun, and I'm screwing it into the ceiling and I'm trying to move, and then all of a sudden it fell and it broke again.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Okay. This happened. This ain't happening again. It's not gonna happen. Because now my patience is about thin. I'm tired, I'm dripping with sweat, I'm bleeding from getting cut. So I'm just like, let me go up here. I drew it out again, measured it, drew it out, cut it, climb up the ladder. On the third time, I'm screwing it in, and it fell down on me. And it fell on top of me, and I fell off of the ladder, and that big sheet fell on top of me.
Oh.
And I just sat there on the floor. I was sitting there, and I was just looking at the sheet. It had broke again. That meant I had to remeasure and recut it. And I just felt like God, I can't do this. This is too much. And I cried on the floor. I just sat there. It was tears in my eyes, and as I was sitting there, it took about maybe 5 minutes, and I was like, if I don't do this, nobody else is going to do this.
Wow.
And I got another burst of energy, and that was the lowest time of my construction. It was plenty of low times where I ran out of money or was tired because I was still working a job, coming all the way in the Bronx, coming to Midtown, getting no sleep while I was working that job, and then coming back doing construction. But this was the hardest time because I felt defeated. I felt like this is not like where I ran out of money where I could just wait till I make some more. This is something where I felt like I was carrying the world and it kept falling on me. I was carrying my dreams and it kept falling. My dream kept falling and breaking. And it felt like it symbolized that with me. But just sitting on the floor and just crying a little bit and just like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back to Cleveland? Like, am I going to give up on my dream? If I don't do this, who's going to do it? And I got back up there and it went up there, but that day made me so much stronger because I felt like it gave me a insight into all of the times that would happen in the future.
Wow.
And it's something I could draw on and be like, yeah, remember when that piece kept falling on me and breaking and I didn't give up. But if I don't do it, who's going to do it for me? And so that was really foreshadowing.
Man, y'all heard that message. If you don't do it, who's going to do it for you? That's some strong, powerful message right there. And I know I've had to walk through that in some parts of my life too, so I feel 100%. Not maybe as deep as you have, because that's definitely out of my league. But
Everybody has their own, and it affects everybody in different ways. Like the struggle might not be physical. Some people have
Right.
mental issues that they have to deal with. Some people, emotional things, family things. But yeah, when it hits you and
Yeah.
it feels like the world keeps falling on you and there's nobody helping you, it's a hard thing to get over.
And you were, and tell me, you were homeless at this time. So rewind. You were working all the hours, spending all your
Working all
money buying material to build the studio. You're the only one building the studio, but you
Yes.
weren't even living in your little house anymore. You were living in your car. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it was crazy because I was living in my car. If you get to know New York, I would park my truck under the 7 train. I had a 1990 Isuzu Rodeo. So that would have been, a pretty old 12-year-old, 13-year-old car by then. And I would park it under the 7 train because I could take the 7 train into the city. There's no parking in the city. So I didn't have enough money to spend, $100 a night on parking in the city. So I would park all the way out in Queens. So my day would be, I worked second shift at Spofford. I would go there, work, my 8, 9 hours, then catch the train, or drive back to underneath the 7 train, and then catch the 7 train into Midtown where I would do the work. And during that time, I probably slept maybe 3 hours a night, and that's not an exaggeration. 3, 4 hours a night at the most. And another thing during that time, I lost about 35 pounds because I didn't have any money. Every little bit of money I would spend on the building materials. I would go to Home Depot and spend all of my money, and then come back and build. And this is true. During those times, I would be hungry. I would go outside, and this is how I realized, New Yorkers don't play. I would go outside and, look for like coins on the ground, because a lot of times I would just, for my dinner, would be those little 25, 50-cent Star Brownies from the corner store. But I could never find any change in New York. And I'm like, they don't play here, because even I would have found a couple of nickels or some pennies or something, but it would be so many nights I was that hungry that I would, on my way to the store, maybe I could find enough change to get 2 brownies. But yeah, I lost 35 pounds during that time and living in a truck. And then when the construction was cleaner, when a lot of the dust and stuff was out, I actually built a little closet for myself, about 5 feet by 4 feet. And I lived there for about 12 years.
You lived in that spot for 12 years?
I lived in a closet. I showered I had a gym membership to Bally's. So I would walk down to 32nd Street to go shower. I would work out, go shower. And that's where my shower was. Brush my teeth there, then come back here in 12 years. And when you think about it, 12 years was the first studio had gotten successful. I had built the second studio. I had built the third studio. And I didn't get my place until I had built my 4th studio already. And that was because of the Atlantic Records deal that I did to become their headquarters in New York.
So
and
you fast forward on a couple of things there. So
yeah.
Let's bring them back just a little bit.
Yeah.
You jumped from the homeless part to now you got your 3rd, 4th, 5th room.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
That's a big jump. So let's take it back just a little bit in the sense of you were homeless, you were working, you were in your building, sleeping there by the time you got things up and moving. How did this affect your faith? Because you are a man of God. You're believing God's going to do this. Are you thinking, God, did I miss it? Or were you just thinking, okay, God, you're doing something different? What was your take on that?
I don't think it affected my faith any. I was still young too. It gets harder the older you get. I was still young. And it didn't really, it tested my faith. There was a lot of things that tested my faith, but it didn't affect it in a way where I felt like I had missed the opportunity. I never felt like I missed the opportunity or missed that door that I should have ran through. It was always right there. I felt like if I could just push a little further, I could get there, and that's what I did. I really kept pushing. I could tell you another story if you don't mind.
Go ahead, man. That's what you're here for.
Another story that is, and this has never been told actually. So this story has never been told.
We're getting the inside talk, y'all. Inside scoop. Y'all scoot in a little bit so y'all can hear a little better. There we go.
Yeah. So this story is crazy. So like you said, I'm homeless. I at this point I was still working in a job, but the studio was open now. But I had to pay rent on this studio, and I had to still work. So I ended up quitting my job because I was like, okay, I can't work and be a recording engineer because I taught myself how to be a recording engineer in that library in Barnes and Noble. I was still teaching myself that. So I taught myself to be an engineer, and so I had to let go of the other job and depend on clients that I didn't have yet. And I would be, telling people about the studio. I told all my coworkers, but pretty soon I fell behind in rent because I didn't have enough clients coming in. And I talked to the owner of the building, and I told him, give me 3 months and I'll catch up. I was about 3 months behind in rent at that time. And I had my grandmother, I lost her recently, God bless her soul. She made my first business cards for me. And it was $45 an hour, I think, or 35 or $45 an hour for this room. And I would pass out the cards here and there, but I was really relying on like the people that I had been working with, friends that I had made, telling them to spread the word, going to different music stores. But I wasn't coming up with the money. And I was like, God, I'll do whatever it takes. I got to pay this money. I can't lose this dream. Like, I've come too far. And I went the next morning to an unemployment office around the corner. And when I went there, it was packed, like to the brim with people. I mean, everybody's looking for a job. I'm like, oh, they're not going to see me today. And it was true. I stayed there pretty much all day. They closed before they were able to see me. But as I was walking out, I took one of those cards that my grandmother gave me and gave it to the front desk receptionist. And I said, hey, if you are interested in music, I have a studio right around the corner in Midtown on 39th Street. You should check it out. And of course, he's looking like, hold on, you at the unemployment office and you got a studio in this area? Like, how is that even possible? And I was like, yeah, I do. I'm just trying to, get a little extra money. And he said, you know what? Don't tell anybody, but come here at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Make sure you're wearing, some dress shoes, some nice slacks, a shirt and a tie. He was like, I think I might have something for you because I know you need this, and it seems like you're about doing, your business. And so I went home and I was again thanking God, like, oh God, thank God, like, this guy looked out. A lot of people that were there the whole day didn't get this opportunity, but God bless. Like my grandmother gave me that card, and I gave it to him. I had the presence to give him this card. I go back the next morning at 6 a.m. Nice slacks on, some dress shoes, a shirt and a tie, and there's about a group of 30 people there dressed similarly. And he was like, "Okay, everybody, follow me. We're going. The building is not too far." Still didn't know where I was going. I just assumed maybe this must be an office job. We're in Midtown. Maybe it's some clerical stuff at a really big company because a few of us there. We get around the corner and we ended up going into Macy's, the department store. And this was the winter, so we were walking. I was freezing. It was out. But we're in Macy's. And I'm like, okay, I wonder what we're doing here. And we get to the back where they have the employees change at. There's a whole nother side of Macy's I never knew about. That's like for all the and lockers back there. So we're back there, and they're like, okay, so this is the holiday season, and we need people to work the floor, and it's the Christmas season. So the guy hands me a elf hat and a elf cape. And I put on this little green elf hat and this little green cape. And I'm telling you, they put me, yes. And guess what department they put me in? Because
Toys.
it's holiday season,
Toys.
they're knocking stuff over on the ground. The club, they put me in the women's underwear department. So you have this big black elf in the middle of the women's department in Macy's with a green elf hat on and a little red and green cape.
Oh my God.
I put it on and I was like, God, if this is what I need to do to show you that I want this, then I'm gonna be the best big black muscular elf that Macy's has ever seen in the women's department. And the pay, when I tell you the pay was maybe $6 an hour because it was through a temp company, It was $6 an hour, but I needed the money. I
Yeah.
didn't have money. And so by lunchtime, I'm doing the job, I'm picking up, stuff. The job keeps you busy because they're rummaging through stuff, it's falling on the floor, I'm putting it
Yeah.
back. By lunchtime, and I'm trying to do the calculations, well, for $6 an hour, then da da da. And at lunchtime, I literally, not, to me, literally, I felt like I literally heard God tell me, okay, you can leave now. And when he said that, it was as clear as when he said, okay, go to New York now. It was as
Wow.
clear as when he said, pick up that paper and look in the section of the back to look for your new space. It was that clear. And I needed the money, and I was willing to work. I had did the work. I didn't complain one time.
Yeah.
But he was like, okay, now leave. Go to your studio around the corner. Get all those cards that your grandmother made for you. And I want you to stand out on 125th Street until nobody is there. And so I left. I didn't collect the money. I never put in a timesheet. I left, went and got those cards. And I stayed out on 125th Street telling people, studio time. And I was like, oh, he told me, give away a free hour. Free hour studio time. Free hour studio time with your first session. Free hour studio time with your first session. And ever since that day, I never had to look back for a second job.
Wow.
People started coming to the studio. And I realized, like, I don't know why I had to go through that, but it was a real thing. And maybe it was I think a lot of it was to get myself to have the humility to stand out and really stand out on the corner, on that street.
Yeah.
And tell people, be the person, be the flyer person.
Yeah.
And stand out there and ask them to come. Get on their level and show them that, oh yeah, you own the place, but you need these people.
Wow.
You're not above them. You need to be on their level and talking to them. And I did that every day. I would go to 125th Street. I would go to Fulton. I would go to Jamaica and Queens. I would go to all the major streets where I knew the hip hop music or, music would be, people would be doing music. And I gave out cards every day. And I caught up in those 3 months with my rent. And from there, things went uphill.
Do you still have the Santa suit, the elf suit? That's what I want to know.
I
I want to see you in that suit. I'm going to have to save a picture for that.
But I still have, my grandmother just passed recently, but I still have the cards that she made for me. I found the cards. And it just shows you how, God works sometimes. Like I was started the day in an elf suit in the women's underwear department and ended the 3 months with my rent paid. And it was just a journey that I had to go through. It was something that I needed to do for myself to learn whatever lesson that I needed to learn. And I learned it that day.
What a blessing in that story, man. And there's so much in it. I mean, we could dig into that story for a while, but just to know that you swallowed your pride, you did what had to get done, you had to pay the rent, you went and took care of it. And then God said, all right, I see what you're doing. I see you ready to make this happen, so I'm going to pull you out of here. And like you said, he needed you to see that you wanted to do all the jobs that would have to get done for your job, for your company, because it was only you. So you can look at your company and go, I've done all of y'all's job. So can't nobody say it's too menial, it's too low, whatever, because you did them all, right?
I did them all.
And you have a respect for that, and they have to have a respect for you in that space, right?
I would hope so. I still work on a few, but yeah, it's a different generation. It's but
these young kids are entitled, man. They entitled.
Yeah,
they don't want to work.
It's a lot of gratification. It at least existed in my immediate circle.
Yeah, come on now. Well, let me fast forward now. After all that blood, sweat, and tears, 2005, you finally start to see the seeds of success a bit. You're blooming, but you were still sleeping in the building that not quite had your own space yet, but you were starting to see it. When did you finally get that place? We were talking a little bit about it.
Um, when I first started to see it was, like I said, when EMI started to come through. Um, that was around 2005, and bigger people start coming through. A lot of producers, Science, who's a 4-time Grammy winner, who's a close friend of mine still. I could just go through like all of these amazing writers, Shay Taylor, amazing producers. They were all working out of here, and they all loved the spot. And like I said, big shout out to Leotis Claiborne and my guy at Rock Nation now. But it was during that time that I realized, like, yo, it's starting to move. We didn't have enough space for everybody who was trying to get in eventually. There was a time in 2007, between 2007 and 2009, I think Kelly Rowland was trying to get in through Omar Grant, my guy that was at EMI at the time, now at Rock Nation. We couldn't get Kelly Rowland in because we were working on Solange. And that's a crazy problem to have. So that's when I decided, like, we need to expand. And this was all word of mouth. I still was doing the card thing. But this time I had interns doing the cards for me. And during this time I had hired my first and most important hire, right? My guy, McKalen Blue Spruce. He was the first intern that I ever had. He did a session here with Dame Dash Music Group. It was when Jay and Dane had first split, and it was a crazy session. We're not gonna get into that. It was a crazy.
Don't go there. Don't go there. Keep it nice. Keep it clean.
We're not gonna go there. Yeah, it was a crazy session. But I met Blue because Blue was living with Jay-Z's nephew at the time. And so they knew, the people at Rockefeller. And after that session, he started to intern for me. And I hired him when he graduated. And from that point, he has been probably the biggest catalyst, the biggest driving force into pushing just as hard as me to getting to where we are and beyond. So much so that, I think maybe 10 years ago, he's been working here for about, I think 15 or 16 years now. I gave him equity in the business. He is a partner now because you don't come across people like that and don't reward them with that.
Is that your boy right there?
That's my guy with the beard. I'll tell my other two guys in that picture is Salem Simon on the left, the big guy on the left. That's my brother from another mother from high school. Big Ten champion football player, got drafted to Baltimore Ravens. Just got inducted into the Hall of Fame this past weekend. I just saw him get inducted to the Hall of Fame in Cleveland. And then my guy Yomar on the right, which was one of my first friends here. And he has a clothing line, Yodi 95, and he managed me when I was doing music stuff. So amazing group of guys right there.
Yeah, that's your peoples. That's your peoples, and they still by you, man.
Yeah, but he's one of a kind. And if you have somebody who you can find who works and who trusts you, Blue saw it from the beginning too. So he had a special seat. He saw me build everything, except for Brown Sugar. He came into that, but every other room after the first room, so 10 other rooms, he's watched me put the work in, learning photography to be able to build a photo studio, learning how to build a psych wall, learning how to build a podcast room. What is the equipment needed? Knowing how to work every piece of equipment. So having somebody that has seen that and appreciate it and be able to help let me sort of guide the ship, and him bringing people on, because everybody loves Blue. And Blue, these plaques behind me, this is all Blue. The Grammy, the plaques, the platinum plaques, the gold plaques. He's mixed for everybody. He is the #1 mixer. I don't care what anybody says. He had album of the year, with Solange, A Seat at the Table. He's mixed the soundtrack for Queen and Slim. He's done movies. He's done everything, and everything he does is so culturally significant. So to have somebody that
Mm-hmm.
talented
Mm.
in my corner for all
Yes,
these
sir.
years is what. And I'm looking, me and Blue. Now we're trying to find another Blue. We're like, okay, where's the next one at? Because we know the only way you keep moving is when you're growing the team with the right people.
And I see you got the Hamilton mixtape. That did Blue do that one too?
Blue did that. Blue did Hamilton mixtape #1. It was the #1 album in the country when it debuted, when it came out. Lin
There's your boy.
Manuel, big shout out to Manuel.
There he is.
He does most of the stuff here. He did another song that was #1 in the country when it came out, digital release, just like praying, and it was, I mean, pretty much every major Latino star, Latino or Latina star that you can imagine was on that album. But that's him cutting some music right there.
Wow.
And he does a lot for the culture. So we work with those type of people who are significant to the culture. Solange recently being the first Black woman to do New York Ballet, and
Mm.
she composed that here. You know, we've been part of some historic things, especially for our community.
Wow. Wow. And it all started from you saying, "No, I'm not gonna do NFL, God. I guess you want me to do the second passion with this $50 or whatever I got from my grandma. I'm gonna go ahead and start this take over the world thing." And here you are 20 years later, and you physically did it. Like God pushed you all the way through it. It's mind blowing to me. Mind blowing to me. You know. Now let's fast forward one more time because you've covered a lot. Let's fast forward to the pinnacle of success. You finally arrived, if you want to call it that, because you've done so much now. I'm thinking, your facility boasts 11 suites. You have. Yeah, let me give you a couple pictures here. Let's see if you can see this. Can you guys see this here? These suites are amazing. I mean, they look like you're chilling at the house, relaxed, just coasting. You want to come record here. You just want to come and relax. You got a video room, which is really super sharp. Now, see if I can get that one to pop through. That's sharp. You got, you're looking outside New York City. You got your room. You're chilling. I mean, it doesn't. You got a podcast room. You have a little bit of everything in this spot, man, where you can do all of it. And now, did this match the dream you had all this time in your head? And where do you want to go from here? When you were dreaming about this building, does this match everything you were dreaming about? And what's next?
So I'm the type of person that this is not all the way where I wanted to go.
Wow.
And when I get to where I wanted to go, I'm sure there's much more. When I did the deal with Atlantic Records to be their headquarters, I thought that was amazing. I was like, oh, this is really cool. We're the headquarters for a major label. A lot of those clients that came through were through that deal. Ed Sheeran and Ty Dolla $ign and Shawn Mendes. We had a lot of, great clients through here during that situation. And then that situation ended, after a few years. And it made me wanting more. So I can tell you the first thing that I did when that situation came to an end, because we were their headquarters, but they also had me A&Ring. I was an A&R consultant for them, and I was also developing writers and producers and bringing independent writers and producers into their vision so they can see and into their peripheral so they can see these guys a lot more clearly. One thing that happened, the first song that I ever brought Atlantic was a song called Good Kisser. And I was so sure that this song was a single. I was like, this song is going to be amazing. It was my guy Pop did it down in Philly. My guy Donnie Meadows was the manager. Big shout out to them. We did a lot of work together. But this song was amazing, and I brought it in and I told him, like, this is a single, and I thought, this could be somebody's, really, really cool song. It was like a wink and a nod to sex. It was a James Brown type of feel. So I was like, yo, this will fit right in some of these guys' lane. And they were like, oh no, it doesn't sound like a radio song. And that was the first song I was so sure about it. That I was like, yo, this is gonna work. And they, hearing that no, I had been an owner for so long. I wasn't used to no.
No, what do you mean no?
No, what do you mean? This is the song. What are you talking about? But they said no. And that was hard for me. But a lot of those things that I brought to them, including that first song, including like some people, amazing artists like Ravina Aurora, like people that I brought there, um, that ended up, so the song Good Kisser ended up being Usher's leadoff single and it debuted #4, but it was a year and a half later, I believe. There was a lot of cool stuff done here. There was a song, my guy Daniel did a song here, Tove Lo, Bad Habits, the I Gotta Stay High song. That debuted at #4, and Atlantic didn't really see the vision for that. So there was a lot of things that came through here that were done here that were amazing, but didn't come to fruition until after the situation was done. And so that was a thing that I learned with that is like, if you believe in something, trust it, because you might see things earlier than the people around you see them, right? So for me, a big part of that was learning to keep my confidence in the midst of being told no, like understanding like, no, you did hear that thing, but it's hard when the validation doesn't come until 3 or 4 years later, 2, 3, 4 years later. But so, the first thing I did out of the situation with Atlantic was I was like, I'm gonna show them how you can put something out and make it pop. They were really focused on R&B women at that time. And what I did was, my wife is a singer, and she hadn't put out an album. She hadn't put out an album yet, and she was a little left field, and she really like diversified my ear. She really helped my ear grow and to hear different types of music. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put out your album. It's not a commercial thing. It's more like a feel, a vibey thing. But I was like, I bet you I can do better with your album than what Atlantic was doing with some of these girls. And me and my wife, we put in the work. We came up with a game plan. I used a lot of things that I learned at Atlantic from great people like Lan Ray Gabba and Craig, and there was a lot of amazing people up there that I was able to learn from. Riggs Morales. But I put out that album with her debut album, and it was on 5 Billboard charts. It was #9 R&B hip hop. It was like #12 on the independent charts. It was like, literally, it made 5 Billboard charts and in the top 20 in each of those charts, which was amazing. And it showed me like, oh yeah, you can do this thing. Like, this is something that is built into me. But my wife was something they would have never, I don't think they would have ever saw the potential in. But she did it. We grew her fan base. She did amazing touring, and she was on 5 Billboard charts, and she was on iTunes top charts for about 4 months. And we did it in a very untraditional way. We, really back then, it was 2017, Spotify was starting to take over. But her type of music is not like clickbait commercial music. It's like, you have to build fan base. So we only sold the album. We focused on the album. We didn't put any energy into Spotify. That's how we kept ranking so high on iTunes, because we weren't selling songs or we weren't counting on streams. She got those billboards and those billboard plaques because we just sold albums. We focused on getting her albums out through iTunes, through her website, like physical copies at her shows. And that's how we ended up charting like that, which was unheard of. Everybody was trying to jump onto the Spotify, which is huge now. Obviously, her next album, which will be coming soon, will of course focus on Spotify. But you have to know the artist that you're dealing with and what their market is. And that was one of the things. So me having that success on my first label release under the Randall House was a huge confidence boost to me, because it was like, yeah, this is what I thought would happen if we did some of these things that I thought you guys should do.
Wow. So you made a right and you created your own label, the Randall House, but you kind of slipped that into the story. You didn't tell us that yet, but you slipped it in there. So you guys peeped that. He started his own label from all the work he was getting from the people he was used to and he was meeting at all the Atlantic and Warner and all the artists he was working with. He said, I can do this myself. God gave him the direction to do it. And then, of course, you and your wife put together this beautiful little baby girl who's now the center of your world, right? And I'm sure that changed everything once she got here, right?
That is Morgan Randall, and she is my everything. This is my first child, 3 years old now.
Yeah.
Thank God she took her looks from her mom. Even though but she's beautiful like her mom.
Well, man, you guys are a beautiful family, and I have taken up 100 minutes of your time, and I really gotta pull you out now, but I really appreciate you sharing so much of your story. And for everybody out there that's had a chance to listen and watch, I know we had some technical difficulties with the video. Don't sweat that, man. The story was what was really important. And I hope you could see that each step along the way in his adversity, he kept going. And I feel like us these days, we hit a block and we stop or we're tired or we give up, or it gets hard and we're like, oh, we just let's not be it. But man, every time he hit a block, he just kept going. And now he's here, and now he is blessed beyond measure, and God is doing crazy things with him. And now he's got an 11-suite room in New York City, in Times Square, and it's solely owned by him. Black entrepreneur, big heads up for that. And so with all that as the story, as the closing of that, there's somebody out there right now, listen to this program, who's homeless, maybe living in his car. Maybe he's feeling like what I'm dreaming is never going to happen. No one understands. No one believes me. What do you say to that person out there right now? Because of everything you went through, what can you tell them?
Understand that there's a strength that comes from outside of you. You cannot do it on your own. And this is from my journey. I couldn't do it on my own. You have to understand whatever faith you are, whatever you believe in, understand that there is something bigger than you in this world that can help propel you to the dreams that Creator put inside of you. Because they were put into you to be birthed out. They weren't put in there to die. They were put in there for you to have them come out. And that force and that higher power wants you to move forward with those things, but you can only do it through work.
Man, that's a blessing. Thank you for sharing, man. I just appreciate you. And we're going to do big things next year, right? You and me, we doing big things next year, man. We taking it to the next level, no doubt. This will not be the last time we see each other together, right?
Of course not.
Man. And please give love to your family and friends out there, and for everybody who stopped by. Thank you, Walter, for spending some time with us, man.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me, Derek.
And for everybody out there that's closing up, we appreciate the time you spent with us. If you've enjoyed this segment, there's a replay. So once it stops, you can send this link on to someone and they can watch it to be inspired. But most importantly to me, please do me a favor, like the page, subscribe if you can. And we want to make sure you come back and see us, because at my channel, we want to make sure everybody leaves uplifted, encouraged, and inspired. So thank you for being a part of the Beautiful Now podcast tonight. Good night. Have a great one. Take care.